Hello everyone, my name is Anifat and I'll be your SQL instructor. So here we have the slide, Introduction to SQL. So SQL stands for Structured Query Language. It's a standard language used for manipulating, analyzing, and accessing database. So SQL is just like another tool for analyzing data, manipulating data, and cleaning data. So what Excel can do, SQL can also do it. They are all different tools under data analysis. So you can either make use of SQL or Excel or Power BI for your analysis. Then my next slide is what can SQL do? SQL can be used to execute queries against a database. You can use it to retrieve data from a database. You can use it to insert records, update records, delete records, and so on. So next slide is I have fields and record. But before that, I've mentioned database in my previous slide. So what is a database? A database in SQL is a collection of data that is organized and stored in a structured format. It allows data to be easily accessed, updated, and analyzed. So I want you to see this database as a file name, as a file that is going to hold our table. Just see a database as a file name in Excel. If you want to open a sheet, an information in a file on Excel, you have to open the file name first. So that file name is what we call database in SQL. Then we have what we call a table. A table in SQL is a structure that holds the actual data in the database. It is made up of rows and columns, with each row representing a record and each column representing a field. So a table is just like Excel spreadsheet. It has rows and columns. So we call it table in SQL. In Excel, it is called a spreadsheet. So now, we usually store a table inside a database in SQL, just like we store information on Excel in a workbook. So in SQL, we don't call it a column, we call it a feed. A feed is a column in a table that is designed to maintain specific information about every record in a table. So instead of calling it a column, we call it a feed. A feed. While a row is called a record in SQL. Please take note of that. So in summary, a database is the whole system, and a table is a specific structure for storing data within that system. The table is always inside a database. So when we get to the practical part of it, you are going to see what I mean by a database and a table. Also, we have what we call the SQL comment. SQL comment is a statement that is not interpreted by the SQL server. It is a way to add notes to your code for yourself or other developers who may be working with your database. They are usually written with a / asterisk at the beginning of your notes, and also a asterisk and the backslash. Or if it is this is used when this particular line here is used when you are working on a multiple line comment. For instance, look at this sentence I have here. This is a multiple line comment because I've written it in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It is written in 5 lines. So in SQL, we use this / at the beginning of my word like this. I don't think I can do it here. Yeah, but when we get to the practical part of it, you see what I mean by a comment. So a comment is just a way of describing what you are doing. We don't usually run a comment. It is just a note to understand what you are trying to do in that cell or in that line. So they can be placed anywhere in your code, and they are always ignored by SQL server when executing your query. So that is just how SQL comments work. It is just a note. Because when we get to the practical part of it, you see me highlighting my query and running it. But when you are using a comment, SQL doesn't see a comment as a query. So even if you run it, it is not going to go through because you have used this symbol. So you can either use this symbol here or use this symbol here, this double hyphen. The double hyphen, when you are working with a single line, you make use of the double hyphen. But if you are working with a multiple line comment, you make use of a forward slash and backward slash with asterisk. And also we have the SQL data type. So SQL data types are different types of data that can be stored in a SQL database. They are used to define the format of the data in each field of a table. The most common data types are integer, char, varchar, text, float, date, and date time. Integer is always written as int. This char means character, and this varchar means variable character. So you see, char, text, and varchar data types are used to store a string, a text string. For instance, when you are dealing with a column that has to do with a alphabetical column, or a column that has to do with text, you can make use of these three data types here because they are the only data types that can define a text column and alphabetical column. While the integer, for instance, before I move to the integer, for instance, I might have a column that has to do with maybe employee name. Employee name is obviously a string column. It is a column that has text in it. My name is Anifat. I'm an employee of Tech Studio Academy. So if I want to define that column, I need to make use of either character, text, or varchar to define that column because we need a data type to hold that column. So you can either use text, varchar, and data and char. And the char, text, and varchar always comes with a size. I mean, the char and varchar always comes with size. For instance, my name is Anifat. It has 8 characters. So when I'm defining that column, I need to specify the size. So if I put in 8 into that bracket, that means I'm saying that the name on that column must not exceed 8. So it is always better to use numbers that are above, like numbers like 30, 40, 45, and the likes, because we know that we can never have a name that can be up to that amount. You will see that when we get to the practical aspect of it. Then the integer data types are used to store whole numbers. If you are dealing with a column that has to deal with whole numbers, something like a serial number, a product ID, a user ID, they are whole numbers. You make use of integer. Then we have float. Float data types are used to store decimal values. When you have a column that has decimal numbers, you make use of floats to define the data type. Then we have the date and the date time data type. The date data type works when you are dealing with a dated column, while the date time data types works when we are dealing with a date and time data column. So thank you guys. See you in the next video for more practical example.